If you can't manage your editing files fast, then you'll never be able to take on bigger, higher paying editing jobs. And it might be the reason you always feel so behind on deadlines. So in this video, I'm going to share the exact file management system I've used for over 2 decades on $100,000 TV commercials, so you can save time and grow your editing business. Here's the first thing you need to know if you want to manage your editing files on high-end projects without the stress. Early in my career, a client asked me if I could do some revisions on an editing project. Of course, I said yes. I went and found the external hard drive, I plugged it in, and all I heard was this horrifying clicking sound. The drive was dead, and I had no backup, and it turns out neither did my client. By some miracle, I found the master file of the finished video on my internal hard drive, and I was able to make some of the requested changes, but not all of them because I didn't have the raw footage. And at that moment, I decided I needed a new file management system if I was going to grow my editing career. Because on bigger projects, losing media isn't just frustrating, it can cost you time, money, and it can even cost you a client. So after years of trial and error, here's the exact editing file management system that I came up with. And stick around to the end because this isn't all technical details. I'm actually going to share how I manage files within my software so you can really unleash your creativity. And if you'd like my full editing file management strategy in a single PDF, click the link in the description to download your free guide. First, I recommend you use something called the 3-2-1 backup system. Here's what it means. You have your files in 3 places on 2 different types of media, with one of those being off-site. And here's one way you can easily meet those requirements. First, make it clear to your clients that they need to keep a copy of their own raw media. Then keep your copy of the media on your local editing drive. Then use software like Backblaze to automatically back up your local editing drives to the cloud. And when you start using this strategy, your client's data will always be safe. You'll easily be able to pull it up for any revisions, and that builds trust. So they'll hire you on bigger and better projects. Now that your raw material is safe, I'm going to show you how to organize your media so you never have to deal with the stress of finding a missing file ever again. So early in my career, I was not very organized. I would lose files, sometimes my media would go offline. So I was always in a mad dash to clean up my mess of files at the end of projects, and it was an absolute disaster. And after going through this cycle many times, I eventually figured out that I just needed to come up with a way to do 20% of file management that would get me 80% of results. Detailed enough that I could serve high-end clients, but not so complex that I couldn't stick to it. Now let me show you the heart of that system. It starts with the folders on your hard drive. I recommend you keep a set of empty folders on your drive that you can easily copy and paste into every new project, so all of your projects are identical. Just have a folder for each asset type. Here's my template so you can copy it, but feel free to make it your own. And once you put a file into one of these folders, don't move it and don't rename it. That alone will solve 99% of your problems with media going offline. And now that your files are organized at the hard drive level, it's time to bring them into your editing software. So just like you made a template for your folder structure, you're now going to make a template for your project bins. That way you can open every new editing project with a fresh set of bins. You can take a look at my bins here. Notice anything? Well, they're almost identical to the hard drive folders. And this is kind of the secret sauce of my editing file management. By the way, all of this information and more is in my free editing file management checklist. Click the link in the description to get yours. Now I'm going to share a strategy that doesn't just make your files easy to access, it will actually help unleash your creativity. So you have all your clips in these different bins. Now what? Well, I've tried about every system there is, but I've found the one that will help you the most, especially when it comes to high-end projects. Take your raw clips and cut them into a single master sequence that we'll call a string out. Here's an example of one of mine. Then organize your raw media in the sequence by shot and take and put them in story order. Then add a little chapter marker at the beginning of each shot so you can easily navigate between them. Now when you're building out your story, you can easily see all the raw material you have access to all in one place. Another method would be to use something called a selects sequence, where you just pick your favorite takes and you only pull from those when you're working through your edit. But I feel like having this master string out really unleashes your creativity because you're forced to kind of scrub through all of the takes, even takes you might not have liked at the beginning of the project, to find solutions to whatever you're working through in your edit. And I think you'll be surprised how often you stumble upon something or an idea is sparked when you're scrubbing through that master string out. One helpful method to start working on your rough cuts is to have two sequences open: your master string out with all of your raw material, and then a blank timeline for your edit. You can put them on top of each other like a pancake in your editing timeline. That's why this is often called the pancake method. And you can simply then drag clips from your master string out straight into your rough cut timeline. Now I'm going to show you 2 hacks for managing your sequences that will save you hours. Many years ago, I was doing one of my first live edit sessions with a director, and we got the short film we were working on to a good place, but then he had an idea he wanted to try. So we went down this new rabbit hole for a couple of hours, and at the end he said, "Hey, I actually liked how we had it. Let's just go back to that." The problem was that I hadn't made a new sequence. And so I couldn't go right back to that. I had to confess to him that I was going to have to rebuild how we had it from memory. And I was so embarrassed, and the director was frustrated. Thankfully, he was kind about it. But from that moment on, I made it a habit to always make a new sequence whenever you're going to make a big change to your edit, or even a little change to your edit. Sequences don't take up a lot of space, so just make as many as you need to. So whether you're editing with a client live or getting notes online, if you're always making new sequences, anytime they ask you to pull up an old version, you can do it seamlessly, and that will build trust and build a great relationship with that client. But the question is, how are you going to keep track of all those new sequences in your bin? Here are 2 easy things you can do to eliminate that stress of having to find the right sequence. First, start your sequence name with the date in this format: 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day. That way you can sort your sequences by name, and they'll pop up in chronological order so you can easily find the latest one you were working on. Then give each sequence its own unique number. I like to do this at the end of the name, starting with 0, 1. Then every time I make a new sequence, I move that up to 02, 03, 04. And now every single sequence has its own unique number. This is particularly helpful when you get feedback on a cut from a client. You can easily see what the number is from the name, and then you can instantly find the right sequence in your project file. This will save you hours when working through client feedback. And now I'm going to show you something that takes the 3-2-1 backup strategy to a whole new level. So the hard drive that failed in my first story was a spinning disk drive. They were the most common drives at the time, and it's really all I had access to. Today, we have much better options, the best being solid state drives, or SSDs. They are 50 times more shock resistant, they have about half the failure rate, and they last about twice as long. So by switching to SSDs, not only will you make your editing software more reliable and have the ability to easily edit footage from high-end cameras, but you're also leveling up that 3-2-1 backup system, because these drives simply fail less often and they last a lot longer. All of these steps and more are in my free editing file management checklist. Click the link in the description to grab yours. Now you know the 5-step editing file management strategy that will allow you to take on higher-end editing jobs. But knowing them won't help if you don't know the 5 things blocking you from getting those high-end jobs. So watch this video next so you can find out what those things are and how to fix them. Happy editing.